The neon lights of downtown Los Angeles cast an eerie glow on the deserted streets as Olivia Bennett, a renowned investigative journalist, hurried along, her mind racing with the details of her latest exposé. The air was thick with tension, matching the gravity of the corruption case she was piecing together. Olivia's footsteps echoed off the buildings as she turned down a dimly lit alley, a shortcut she often took to her apartment. Suddenly, the sound of multiple footsteps behind her made her heart race. She quickened her pace, clutching her bag tighter, but it was too late. 3 men in dark clothing surrounded her, their intentions clear in their menacing stance. Well, what do we have here?" one of them sneered, reaching for Olivia's bag. She tried to break free, but they were too strong. Fear gripped her as she realized the gravity of her situation. Just as panic was about to overwhelm her, a deep voice cut through the night. "Hey, leave her alone!" A tall, muscular black man appeared at the entrance of the alley, his presence commanding attention. This was Marcus Jackson, a former college athlete who now worked nights at a local community center. The attackers hesitated, eyeing Marcus warily. One of them spat out a racial slur, clearly hoping to intimidate him. But Marcus stood his ground, his eyes blazing with determination. "I said, leave her alone," he repeated, his voice steady and powerful. In a flurry of motion, Marcus moved with surprising agility, positioning himself between Olivia and her assailants. The attackers, realizing they were outmatched, backed away slowly before turning and running into the night. Olivia, still shaken, looked up at her savior with gratitude. "Thank you," she breathed, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." Marcus nodded, his expression softening. "Are you okay? Do you need me to call someone for you?" As Olivia caught her breath, she studied Marcus more closely. Despite his imposing physique, there was a gentleness in his eyes that put her at ease. She realized that this man, who had risked his own safety to help a stranger, might be exactly the kind of person she needed for her investigation. "Actually," Olivia said, a plan forming in her mind, "though I think you might be able to help me with something much bigger than just walking me home. How would you like to make a real difference in this city?" Marcus raised an eyebrow, intrigued. As they walked together towards the safety of the main street, Olivia began to share her vision, and the first seeds of an unlikely partnership were sown. The bustling atmosphere of Café Noir provided the perfect cover for Olivia and Marcus as they huddled over a table in the corner, surrounded by the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the chatter of morning patrons. Olivia spread out a series of documents, her eyes gleaming with the excitement of a journalist on the verge of a breakthrough. "So, let me get this straight," Marcus said, his voice low as he leaned in. "You're investigating a corruption ring that involves some of the most powerful people in the city." Olivia nodded, her blonde hair falling across her face as she pointed to various photographs and documents. "Oh, exactly. We're talking about politicians, business moguls, even some high-ranking police officials. They've been siphoning off millions from public projects, and I'm close to proving it." Marcus whistled softly, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "And you want my help? I'm just a guy who works at a community center. What can I do?" Olivia looked at him intently, her blue eyes meeting his brown ones. "You're more than that, Marcus. You're someone who cares about this community, who's not afraid to stand up for what's right. I need someone like you to help me gather information, to be my eyes and ears in places I can't go." As Marcus considered her words, a group of businessmen at a nearby table caught his attention. They were staring at him and Olivia, whispering among themselves. One of them, a middle-aged white man in an expensive suit, called out, "Everything okay over there, miss? This guy bothering you?" Olivia's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, Marcus spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "We're fine, thank you. Just having a business meeting." The men exchanged skeptical looks, but returned to their conversation. Olivia turned back to Marcus, her expression a mix of embarrassment and anger. "I'm so sorry about that. It's exactly that kind of prejudice and assumption that we need to fight against." Marcus nodded, a sad smile on his face. I'm used to it, but you're right. It's not okay. And maybe that's why I should help you. If we can expose this corruption, maybe we can start to change things in this city. Olivia reached out and squeezed his hand, a gesture of solidarity. Together, we can make a difference. Are you in? Marcus took a deep breath, then nodded. I'm in. Let's do this. As they continued to discuss the details of the investigation, the energy between them shifted. They were no longer just two strangers brought together by chance. They were partners, united in a cause bigger than themselves. The road ahead would be dangerous, but in that moment, both Olivia and Marcus felt a surge of hope. Together, they just might be able to bring light to the shadows that had long plagued their city. The opulent ballroom of the Grandview Hotel buzzed with the city's elite, their laughter and the clink of champagne glasses a stark contrast to the tension coursing through Marcus as he navigated the crowd. Dressed in a rented tuxedo, he blended in seamlessly with the well-heeled guests, but his mind raced with the gravity of his mission. From across the room, Olivia watched anxiously, her press badge giving her access to the high-profile political fundraiser. She spoke into her concealed microphone, her voice barely above a whisper. Remember, Marcus? We're looking for any conversations about the harbor development project. That's where we think the money's being funneled. Marcus gave an imperceptible nod, making his way towards a group of men huddled in deep conversation near the bar. As he approached, he could feel their eyes on him, a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Marcus said smoothly, adopting the confident air Olivia had coached him on. "I couldn't help but overhear you mention the harbor project. I'm with Jackson Investments, and we're always looking for new opportunities in the city." The men exchanged glances, their initial wariness giving way to interest. One of them, a silver-haired man Marcus recognized as Councilman Robert Thompson, stepped forward. "Jackson Investments, you say? I don't believe I've heard of your firm before." Marcus felt a bead of sweat form on his brow, but kept his composure. "We're relatively new to the West Coast, but we've been making waves back east." As the conversation progressed, Marcus carefully steered it towards the details of the harbor project, his keen ear picking up on subtle hints of impropriety. However, just as he was about to delve deeper, a voice from behind startled him. Well, what do we have here?" It was Derek Foster, one of the men who had confronted Olivia in the cafe days earlier. "I didn't realize they were letting just anyone into these events now." The implication in his tone was clear, and Marcus felt the familiar sting of discrimination. The other men shifted uncomfortably, their earlier openness evaporating. Councilman Thompson cleared his throat. "I'm sure Mr. Jackson here has every right to be at this event. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have some business to discuss." As the group moved away, leaving Marcus alone with Foster, Olivia's voice crackled in his ear. "Get out of there, Marcus. We've got enough for now." But before Marcus could make his exit, Foster stepped closer, his voice low and threatening. "I don't know who you really are or what you're up to, but I suggest you leave. Now, before things get unpleasant." Marcus met Foster's gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "I have as much right to be here as anyone else," he said firmly, before turning and walking away. As he made his way out of the ballroom, his heart pounding, Marcus knew that their investigation had just become far more dangerous. The corruption they were uncovering ran deep, and those involved would stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. But as he met Olivia's concerned gaze across the room, he also knew that they couldn't stop now. They were in too deep, and the truth needed to come out, no matter the cost. The small apartment in South Central Los Angeles felt even more cramped than usual as Marcus paced back and forth, his mother's worried eyes following his every move. The weight of his involvement in Olivia's investigation pressed heavily on his shoulders, conflicting with the expectations and fears of his family. "Marcus, baby, I don't like this," Evelyn Jackson said, her voice tinged with concern. "Getting mixed up with some white journalist, poking around in dangerous business? It's not safe for a young black man in this city." Marcus stopped pacing, turning to face his mother. The lines of worry etched on her face made him pause. reminding him of all the sacrifices she had made to keep him safe and provide opportunities for him. "Mama, I know you're worried, but this is important. We have a chance to expose real corruption, to make a difference in our community." Evelyn shook her head, her voice rising with emotion. "And what good will that do if you end up hurt, or worse? You think those powerful men care about justice? They'll crush you without a second thought, and this city will keep on turning like nothing ever happened." The truth in her words stung, but Marcus felt a fire burning within him that wouldn't be extinguished. "That's exactly why we have to do this, Mama. If we don't stand up, if we don't fight, nothing will ever change. I can't just sit by and watch our people suffer while the rich get richer off our backs." As they argued, memories of Marcus's father, who had been wrongfully imprisoned years ago, hung unspoken between them. The injustice of that event had shaped both of their lives, instilling in Marcus a deep-seated need to fight for what was right, while reinforcing Evelyn's fear of a system stacked against them. Meanwhile, across town in her sleek downtown apartment, Olivia was facing her own internal struggle. She sat at her desk, surrounded by notes and photographs from their investigation, but her mind was elsewhere. A framed photo of her as a child, standing beside her father in front of the newspaper office where he had worked, caught her eye. Memories of the day her father's career had been destroyed by the very corruption he sought to expose came flooding back. The sight of him, broken and defeated, her finger hovering over Marcus's number. She wanted to call him, to share her fears and doubts, to find reassurance in his steadfast determination. But she hesitated, aware of the growing connection between them and the complications it could bring to their already perilous situation. As the night wore on, both Marcus and Olivia grappled with their personal demons. The weight of their pasts, the pressure of their present circumstances, and the uncertainty of their future all converged, testing their resolve. Yet even in their moments of doubt, a shared sense of purpose kept them tethered to their mission. In the quiet hours of the night, as the city slept unaware of the forces working to expose its darkest secrets, two unlikely allies found strength in their commitment to the truth and to each other. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, driven by a shared vision of justice and the hope for a better tomorrow. The sound of shattering glass pierced the night, jolting Olivia from her sleep. Heart pounding, she scrambled out of bed, grabbing her phone as she made her way to the living room of her apartment. The sight that greeted her sent a chill down her spine. A brick lay on the floor, surrounded by shards of glass from her broken window. Her voice trembling. "They know. They've threatened me directly." Within minutes, Marcus was at her door, his face etched with concern. As he surveyed the damage and read the note, his jaw clenched with anger. "This is serious, Olivia. You can't stay here." After a brief discussion, they decided that Olivia would temporarily move to Marcus's apartment. It wasn't in the safest neighborhood, but it was off the radar of those who were after her. As they drove through the quiet streets of Los Angeles, the gravity of their situation settled over them. They were no longer just investigators, they were targets. Marcus's small apartment in a rundown building in South Central was a far cry from Olivia's sleek downtown loft, but as soon as they entered, she felt a sense of safety wash over her. The space was modest but neat, filled with books and family photos that spoke of a life rich in love and perseverance. As Marcus made up the couch for himself, insisting that Olivia take the bedroom, they found themselves opening up to each other in a way they hadn't before. The shared danger had broken down the last of their barriers. "I never told you why I became a journalist," Olivia said softly, perched on the edge of the bed. She recounted the story of her father's downfall. "It's not just about the story, it's about finishing what he started." Marcus listened intently, then shared his own story. He spoke of growing up in this neighborhood, of friends lost to violence and drugs, of the constant struggle against a system that seemed designed to keep people like him down. "But that's why I work at the community center," he explained. "I want to give these kids a chance, show them there's another way." As the night wore on, their conversation deepened. They shared their fears, their hopes, and their determination to see this through, no matter the cost. Her face paled as she read it aloud. "We know everything about you and your new friend. Back off now, or everyone you care about will suffer." Marcus and Olivia exchanged a look of determination tinged with fear. They were in too deep to back out now, but the stakes had just gotten much higher. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the window, they began to plan their next move, knowing that every step forward was now fraught with danger. The threat had brought them closer, but it had also made their mission more urgent than ever. In the heart of South Central, an unlikely duo prepared to take on the corrupt powers that threatened not just their investigation, but their very lives. The rhythmic tapping of Marcus's fingers on the kitchen table filled the small apartment as he stared at his laptop screen, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. Olivia, noticing his distress, moved closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Marcus, what is it?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. He turned to her, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and confusion. I think I found something, but it can't be right. It just can't be." On the screen was a series of financial documents and emails, all pointing to a name that Marcus knew all too well. Darius Wilson, his childhood friend who had gone on to become a rising star in local politics. "Darius is involved in this?" Olivia gasped, quickly scanning the documents. "Marcus, this is huge. These transactions, they're clearly part of the money laundering scheme we've been tracking." Marcus stood up abruptly, running his hands over his face. "No, there has to be some mistake. Darius, he wouldn't do this. He's always talked about making things better for our community." Olivia's journalistic instincts kicked in, even as she sympathized with Marcus's distress. "I know this is hard, Marcus, but we have to follow the evidence. If Darius is involved, it could be the key to unraveling this whole conspiracy." Marcus paced the small living room, his mind racing. Memories of growing up with Darius in the projects, of their shared dreams of making it out and giving back to their community, flooded his thoughts. How could the same person who had once organized neighborhood cleanups and tutoring programs now be involved in stealing from the very people he'd sworn to help? "I need to talk to him," Marcus said suddenly, turning to Olivia. "Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe he's being set up or blackmailed." Olivia's expression was a mixture of concern and caution. "Marcus, I understand how you feel. But confronting Darius could be dangerous. If he's really involved, he might alert the others. We could lose everything we've worked for." The tension in the room was palpable as Marcus struggled with his conflicting loyalties. On one hand, he had committed to helping Olivia expose the truth, to fight for justice in a city plagued by corruption. On the other, the thought of betraying a friend, someone he had considered a brother, was almost unbearable. "What would you do?" Marcus asked softly, his eyes meeting Olivia's. "If it was someone you cared about, someone you thought you knew?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "I'd remember why we started this in the first place," she said finally. "To make a difference, to fight for what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." As the weight of her words sank in, Marcus felt a resolve building within him. He knew what he had to do, even if it broke his heart to do it. "Okay," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "We follow the evidence, but I need to be the one to confront Darius when the time comes. I owe him that much." Olivia nodded, understanding the enormity of Marcus's decision. "We'll do this together," she assured him. Both felt the stakes of their investigation rise even higher. The lines between right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal, were blurring, testing not just their resolve, but the very foundation of their partnership. The night wore on as they worked, the glow of the laptop screen illuminating their determined faces. Outside, the city continued its restless sleep, unaware of the storm brewing within its corrupt heart, a storm that threatened to tear apart friendships, challenge long-held beliefs, and push two unlikely allies to their limits in their quest for truth and justice. The campaign office of Councilman Darius Wilson buzzed with activity as volunteers made calls and organized flyers for the upcoming election. Amidst the chaos, Marcus stood in the doorway, his heart pounding with a mix of determination and dread. Olivia's words echoed in his mind, reminding him of the importance of their mission. But the sight of campaign posters bearing his old friend's face made his resolve waver. As Marcus made his way through the office, he could feel curious glances from the volunteers. Some recognized him, whispering to each other about the unexpected appearance of Darius's childhood friend. Finally, he reached the door to Darius's private office, took a deep breath, and knocked. "Well, come in," called a familiar voice. Marcus entered to find Darius seated behind a large desk, his welcoming smile fading as he registered the serious expression on Marcus's face. "Marcus? What's going on, man? You look like you've seen a ghost," Darius said, rising to greet his old friend. Marcus closed the door behind him, his voice low and controlled. "We need to talk, Darius, about the harbor development project." The change in Darius's demeanor was subtle, but unmistakable. A flicker of concern crossed his face before he schooled his features into a neutral expression. "What about it? That project's bringing jobs and investment to our community. It's a good thing." "Is it?" Marcus challenged, pulling out a folder of documents, copies of the evidence he and Olivia had gathered. "Because from what I've seen, it's bringing a whole lot of money into some very specific pockets, including yours." Darius's facade cracked, a mix of anger and fear flashing in his eyes. "Well, where did you get those? Who have you been talking to?" "It doesn't matter," Marcus replied, his heart breaking at the implicit admission in Darius's response. "What matters is that it's true. You're involved in this, Darius. You're stealing from the very people you promised to help." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Years of friendship and shared history crashing against the harsh reality of the present. Then Darius spoke, his voice a mixture of defensiveness and pleading. "You don't understand, Marcus. This is how things work in this city. You have to play the game if you want to make any real change. The money we're redirecting, it's going to fund programs that will really help our people. You can't help people by stealing from them. This isn't the Darius I grew up with. What happened to you, man?" As they argued, their voices rising, neither noticed the door opening behind them. Olivia slipped into the room, her presence unnoticed as she recorded the confrontation on her phone. "You need to come clean, Darius," Marcus said, making one last appeal to his friend's conscience. "Turn yourself in, expose the others involved. It's the only way to make this right." Darius's expression hardened, the last vestiges of their friendship disappearing from his eyes. "I can't do that, Marcus. And if you know what's good for you, you'll walk away from this right now. Forget what you think you know." The threat in his words was clear, and Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about corruption anymore. It was about power, and the lengths people would go to protect it. "I'm sorry, Darius," Marcus said softly, "but I can't do that. The truth is going to come out, with or without your help." As Marcus turned to leave, he finally noticed Olivia standing by the door. The look they exchanged was one of shared determination and support. Together, they walked out of the office, leaving behind not just a former friend, but the last vestiges of Marcus's innocence about the world he was fighting to change. Outside, in the harsh sunlight of the Los Angeles afternoon, Marcus and Olivia knew that their investigation had just entered its most dangerous phase. They had confronted the enemy, and now the enemy knew their faces. The race to expose the truth before those in power could silence them had truly begun. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity for Marcus and Olivia. With Darius now aware of their investigation, they knew it was only a matter of time before the entire corrupt network mobilized against them. Their small apartment had transformed into a makeshift command center, walls covered with documents, photos, and strings connecting the various players in the scandal. Olivia hunched over her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she compiled their evidence into a comprehensive report. "We need to get this to my editor as soon as possible," she said, her voice tense with urgency. "Once it's published, they can't sweep it under the rug." Marcus nodded, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke in hushed tones. "I've got a contact at the FBI who's willing to meet us. If we can get them this information, they might be able to launch an official investigation." As they worked, the tension in the room was palpable, Every car that passed outside, every unexpected noise, sent a jolt of adrenaline through their bodies. They knew they were racing not just against time, but against powerful forces that would stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Marcus approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized the face on the other side. "It's Darius," he whispered to Olivia, who quickly began gathering their most crucial documents. Marcus opened the door slowly, his body tense and ready for anything. Darius stood in the hallway, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a look of desperation. "Marcus, please," Darius said, his voice low and urgent. "You don't know what you're getting into. These people, they're dangerous. They've already threatened my family. I'm begging you, drop this investigation." The sincerity in Darius's plea was evident, but Marcus stood firm. "We can't do that, Darius. Too much is at stake. But it's not too late for you to do the right thing. Help us expose this. We can protect you and your family." For a moment, it seemed like Darius might consider the offer, but then his expression hardened. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I truly am, but I can't risk it, and I can't let you risk it either." Before Marcus could react, two large men appeared behind Darius. In a flurry of motion, they pushed past Marcus into the apartment. Olivia's scream was cut short as one of the men grabbed her, while the other grappled with Marcus. "Don't hurt them," Darius commanded, his voice strained. "Just get the documents and the computer. We need to shut this down." As Marcus struggled against his attacker, he locked eyes with Olivia across the room. In that moment of shared desperation, he retrieved a small flash drive just as he was tackled to the ground. "Olivia, run!" he shouted, tossing the drive in her direction. Olivia, who had managed to slip from her captor's grasp, caught the drive mid-air. Without hesitation, she dashed for the fire escape, disappearing into the night. As Marcus was restrained, Darius approached him, his expression a mix of regret and resignation. "I'm sorry it had to come to this, old friend, but some secrets are meant to stay buried." As he was dragged away, Marcus felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. Olivia had escaped with their evidence. The truth would come out, one way or another, and he was prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that he had stood up for what was right. The night air filled with the sound of sirens as Olivia ran through the streets of Los Angeles, clutching the future of their investigation, and perhaps the city itself, in her hand. And media personalities gathered for the annual City Development Gala. Amidst the glittering gowns and polished suits, Olivia moved with purpose, her press badge giving her access to the exclusive event. Olivia's hand unconsciously touched the flash drive hidden in her clutch, containing all the evidence of the corruption they had uncovered. Her plan was simple but dangerous. Confront the key players in public, where they couldn't easily silence her, and expose their crimes to the assembled press and city officials. Across the room, she spotted Councilman Darius Wilson, surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. Their eyes met briefly, and Olivia saw a flicker of panic cross Darius's face before he quickly excused himself from his group. As Darius made his way towards a side exit, Olivia followed, her determination growing with each step. Just as she was about to call out to him, a hand gripped her arm, pulling her into a service corridor. Olivia's cry of surprise died in her throat as she found herself face to face with Marcus, looking disheveled, but very much alive. "Marcus, you're okay," she exclaimed, relief flooding through her. "Barely," he replied, his voice low and urgent. "They tried to keep me quiet, but I managed to escape. Olivia, we need to be careful. They're all here tonight, and they're desperate to stop us." Together, they quickly formulated a plan. As the mayor prepared to give his keynote speech, Olivia would approach the stage, using her press credentials to get close. Marcus would work his way through the crowd, ready to provide backup if needed. As the mayor took the podium, Olivia made her move. She strode purposefully towards the stage, her heart pounding but her resolve unshakable. Just as she reached the steps, she felt a hand on her shoulder. "I can't let you do this, Ms. Bennett," came the voice of Robert Thompson, one of the businessmen implicated in their investigation. Olivia turned to face him, her voice steady as she replied, "It's too late, Mr. Thompson. The truth is coming out tonight." As if on cue, the large screens flanking the stage flickered to life, displaying documents and photos from their investigation. A gasp rippled through the crowd as evidence of bribery, money laundering, and corruption flashed before their eyes. Marcus had managed to hack into the event's AV system, ensuring that even if Olivia was stopped, the truth would still be revealed. Chaos erupted in the hall. Security guards rushed towards Olivia and Marcus, but they were quickly surrounded by journalists and honest officials demanding answers. In the midst of the commotion, Darius Wilson pushed his way through the crowd, his face a mask of conflicting emotions, his voice carrying across the now silent room, "All of it, and I'm ready to tell everything I know." As flashbulbs exploded and reporters clamored for statements, Olivia and Marcus exchanged a look of triumph tinged with disbelief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had exposed the truth and set in motion a chain of events that would change their city forever. In that moment of victory, surrounded by the chaos they had unleashed, Olivia reached out and took Marcus's hand. Together, they had brought light to the shadows, proving that with courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to the truth, even the most deeply entrenched corruption could be overcome. As the night wore on, and the full impact of their revelation began to unfold, Olivia and Marcus knew that their journey was far from over. There would be trials, both literal and figurative, to face in the coming days. But they were ready, strengthened by their partnership and the knowledge that they had made a real difference in the world. The Los Angeles skyline glittered beyond the convention center windows, a city on the brink of transformation. And at the heart of it all stood two unlikely heroes, a black man from the streets and a white woman from the world of journalism, united in their quest for justice and their belief in the power of truth to change the world. 6 months after the explosive revelations at the City Development Gala, Los Angeles was a city transformed. The convention center, once the stage for the dramatic unmasking of corruption, now hosted a different kind of gathering. Citizens from all walks of life filled the main hall, their faces eager and hopeful as they awaited the start of the Rebuilding Trust town hall meeting. Olivia Bennett stood at the podium, her posture confident, but her eyes reflecting the weight of the journey that had brought her to this moment. As she surveyed the diverse crowd, she caught sight of Marcus Jackson in the front row, his encouraging smile giving her strength. "Good evening, everyone," Olivia began, her voice clear and strong. 6 months ago, we stood in this very building and watched as years of corruption and deceit were laid bare. It was a moment of reckoning for our city, a moment that could have led to despair. But instead, it became a catalyst for change. As Olivia spoke, highlighting the progress made in rooting out corruption and implementing new transparency measures, Marcus felt a surge of pride. Their investigation had set off a chain reaction, leading to numerous arrests, resignations, and a complete overhaul of city contracting processes. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he approached the podium with a sense of purpose that had been forged through adversity. The audience, which included many faces from his old neighborhood, watched with rapt attention. "I stand before you today, not just as someone who helped uncover the truth," Marcus began, his deep voice resonating through the hall, "but as a son of this city, someone who has seen both its struggles and its potential. The road ahead won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, I believe we're on the right path." As Marcus spoke about the new community initiatives that had sprung up in the wake of the scandal, including education programs and small business support, he couldn't help but think of Darius. His childhood friend had ultimately chosen redemption, cooperating fully with authorities and providing crucial testimony that had helped bring down the entire corrupt network. In the audience, Evelyn Jackson dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, pride radiating from her face as she watched her son. The journey had been perilous, but seeing Marcus now, standing tall and making a difference, she knew that every worry and prayer had been worth it. After the speeches, as the town hall transitioned into breakout sessions where citizens could directly engage with their new representatives, Olivia and Marcus found a quiet moment together. Can you believe how far we've come? Olivia asked, her eyes scanning the energetic crowds around them. Marcus shook his head, a mix of amazement and determination in his expression. It's incredible. But we can't stop here. There's still so much work to be done. Olivia nodded in agreement. You're right. Which is why I wanted to talk to you about an idea I've been developing. She went on to outline her plan for a new investigative journalism initiative, one that would train and support a diverse group of reporters to continue the work of exposing injustice and holding power to account. I want you to be a part of it, Marcus, Olivia said. Her voice filled with excitement. Your perspective, your connections to the community, they're invaluable. Together, we can ensure that what happened in our city never happens again, here or anywhere else. Marcus felt a surge of emotion at Olivia's words. The offer represented more than just a job opportunity. It was a chance to continue making a real difference, to be a voice for those who had long been silenced. I'm in, he said without hesitation, reaching out to shake Olivia's hand. But instead of a handshake, Olivia pulled him into a warm embrace. As they parted, both slightly embarrassed by the public display of affection, they couldn't help but laugh. Their journey had begun with suspicion and prejudice, but it had forged a bond between them that transcended race, class, and background, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and a common goal of making the world a little bit better. The sun was setting as Olivia and Marcus left the convention center, casting a golden glow over the city. The Los Angeles skyline, once a symbol of corruption and inequality, now seemed to hold the promise of a brighter future. There would be challenges ahead, new battles to fight, and old wounds still to heal. But as they walked side by side into the gathering twilight, Olivia and Marcus felt ready to face whatever came next. They had brought light to the shadows, exposed truth in the face of lies, and in doing so, they had not only changed their city, but also themselves. Their story was a testament to the power of unlikely alliances, the importance of confronting one's own biases, and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. As they disappeared into the bustling streets of Los Angeles, now alive with a new sense of hope and possibility, Olivia and Marcus knew that their work was far from over. But they also knew that they were no longer alone in their fight. They had inspired a movement, awakened a city, and kindled a light that would continue to shine, pushing back the darkness and illuminating the path toward justice, equality, and a better tomorrow for all.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.